There's a tree that's taken over huge parts of Britain, from the remote highlands of Scotland all the way down to the tip of Cornwall. You find it everywhere. It comes from the Pacific Northwest, where it towers in vast rainforests, forming true wilderness. But here in Britain, it does the opposite, because although from a distance these dark blocks look like forests, when you step inside, you realise that nothing lives here. And the story of this tree runs deeper than many think, and is indeed still being written. Is it time to banish Alaska's invading tree, or is it now destined to stay? And the tree in question, well, it's the Sitka spruce. Behind me, this one here which I'm standing beneath, this is one of Scotland's oldest and largest Sitka spruce. This is a tree which is native to the Pacific Northwest. It gets its name after the Sitka community in Alaska, but its range extends as far south as Northern California. It's the dominant tree in the world's largest temperate rainforest, Tongass National Forest in Alaska. But as you'll see here in Britain, it's become dominant within our own rainforests, and not in a good way. Naturally, it can grow up to 100 meters tall and live up for 700 years. This one behind me here is 54 meters tall, and it's 2 sex. And it was planted in 1832, so it's 193 years old. It's a hugely tolerant tree which can grow in almost all conditions, although its thin bark is susceptible to forest fires, and it has quite a shallow root system, meaning it can blow over in the wind. And its leaves, well, its needles, they're really quite sharp to the touch. They have this kind of like bluish, silvery sheen, and you know, when you're in a plantation and it's blowing in the wind, it has this distinct hissing sound. And for millennia, it's been the foundation of the ecosystem of the Pacific Northwest. As all trees do, it controls the entire ecosystem, from nourishing the soils, regulating the air, and providing opportunities for countless creatures. Early people would have used its roots to weave baskets, its sap would have been used for medicine, and its light but strong wood would have been used to build things like canoes. But today, we prize it for building acoustic soundboards. And here in Britain, what do we use Sitka for? Well, in order to understand that, we need to understand how and why it got here. It was David Douglas, the botanist and explorer, who was responsible for bringing this species across from America. But he was also responsible for bringing around 50 other species of tree as well. His name lives on in the Douglas fir tree. But at the time, he observed the fast growth and resilience of the Sitka, being able to grow on the harsh coastal conditions of the Pacific Northwest. He prized this tree's ability to produce strong but lightweight wood, kind of perfect for forestry. And so this tree behind me here, this was very likely one of the first Sitka spruces to be planted in Scotland. Maybe even Douglas saw it go in himself. Either way, it wasn't the only Sitka to be planted here. Today, Sitka spruce is more dominant than the native Scots pine. Around 70% of Scotland's forests are non-native conifers, and around 30% are broadleaves. And around half of that 70% of conifers are Sitka spruce. Now, I know this might not seem like it's a big deal, but if you consider just how much Scotland's forest cover has changed over time, it's pretty shocking. Before humans influenced the land, the native forest cover was dominated by Caledonian pine forest. This habitat is built from the towering yet open Scots pine canopy, and beneath it you have a thriving understory of other smaller trees like rowan, birch, you can even find some oak in there too, and a rich sort of base and shrub layer. This habitat would have been expansive, covering vast amounts of the country. It does still persist today, but it's declined by more than 99% of its original range, and what does remain is fragmented and scattered around the country. This is a decline which happened around the past 4,000 years or so. Systematically, piece by piece, it's been wiped out. And while this decline has been constant, it's certainly accelerated over the past 1,000 years, over the past few hundred years. From demands for shipbuilding during the Napoleonic Wars, to charcoal for the iron industry, and then later the highland clearances, which made way for large-scale sheep farming, and then throughout the 20th century, what little native forest was left, clearing just accelerated due to the world wars. And this huge demand saw the nation's timber supply run dry. And so in 1999, the Forestry Commission was sent up with a single goal: to ensure that the nation's timber supply never ran dry again. Only problem was that we picked the wrong trees. Why is Sitka spruce so bad from an ecological perspective? Well, for one, this species didn't evolve on this island, meaning that it hasn't built any relationships or interactions with other species which are native to these ecosystems. The best visual example I've got of this is over in the west of Scotland, where you have the Skipponish oak. Now this is an ancient oak which is thankfully left by the foresters. It stands in a clearing surrounded by Sitka spruce. Now if you look at that oak, it is playing host to any number of different lichens, mosses, insects, all kinds of different species. But if you look at the surrounding Sitka spruce, there's nothing on them. And you might be saying, oh Rob, what's that growing behind you there? I'll tell you what that is. This is Rhododendron ponticum, another non-native invasive. But you know, it's doing just fine beneath the Sitka. I don't know. Let's go on a hunt for an oak tree or something. One of the Leaf Curious members, Jonathan, he jokingly said, Rob, show us the biodiversity, try and find some life in these forests. So let's just have a little listen, shall we? Birdsong is always a great indicator of, you know, life in a forest. So let's just hit record on Merlin and let's see what comes up. So Jonathan is one of the many great people who are part of the Leaf Curious membership. And Leaf Curious is here to give nature a voice. Sometimes that's going to wild places, and other times it's featuring people behind awesome nature restoration work. And if this sounds like something which you'd like to be a part of, then you can by becoming a Leaf Curious member yourself. Now, this doesn't just support every aspect of the channel, but it's also the best place to connect and share ideas. Just scan the QR code on screen here to find out more, or head to the link in the description. Thank you. I can hear a jay way over there, but it is way over there. But you know, there's nothing immediately surrounding me, and I'll tell you why that is. You know, one of the biggest problems with these Sitka spruce plantations is, you know, it's not just the tree itself, but it's also how they're planted. A single age, a single species in these regimented rows. Because of the dense cover, even though the lower branches of the tree, they're all dead. Nothing can grow on the forest floor because there's no light, but also the needles which fall, they acidify the soils. And the argument for carbon capture in places like this, it really doesn't go all that far, because you know, while these trees grow quickly and they will be capturing that carbon, these are going to be cut down in 60, 80 years anyway, and that carbon will be released. And because all of these trees are the same age and species, it leaves them really vulnerable to pests and diseases. I understand that forestry is an important part of Britain's landscape and economy, and given its nature, it's not something which can change overnight. But with regard to Sitka spruce and, you know, a more sustainable practice, a better way of doing it, what can we do? In an ideal world, we would be working with only native species, so using Scots pine instead of Sitka spruce, but you know, that's not realistic. But what I think is more realistic is moving toward a forestry system known as continuous cover forestry. This is a much better practice for forestry because, like its name suggests, it focuses on having that continuous cover rather than those clear fell sites where, you know, they move in and they just wipe out an entire area. Instead, with continuous cover forestry, individual trees are selectively removed, or small groups of trees. And this creates a much more dynamic structure, you know, not just with light coming through to new areas, but also in the age of different trees. With continuous cover forestry, it doesn't rely on tree planting, it relies on natural regeneration. And the other key element of continuous cover forestry is having a mix of different species, so your broadleafs mixed in with your conifers. Because you have that mix of species, you will avoid these events where, you know, diseases can sweep through and wipe out an entire block. But crucially, when you look at timber yields over the course of decades, even centuries, continuous cover forestry is comparable to clear felling and like the traditional way that we plant trees in this country. And what place does Sitka spruce have in Britain? Well, I don't think it's going to be going anywhere anytime soon, and it can and should still be used in forestry. It just needs to be used more wisely and not widely. It's all about working with the complexity of the natural world and not against it. If you enjoy the scientific thinking that goes behind these types of systems, then you're going to love Brilliant, the paid partner of this video. So Brilliant is a learning app designed to be uniquely effective. Each lesson is filled with loads of hands-on problem solving, which lets you play around with a huge range of concepts. You can dive into many different aspects from coding to scientific thinking and logical reasoning. It's really fun because you can actually gain XP and build these streaks, and it has a super engaging user experience. From the fluid visuals to the affirming sound design, you know, I like to lock in for 15 minutes a day with my headphones on and just learn something new. Programming and functions is something which I knew very little about before Brilliant, and it's been awesome to easily pick up a new topic and start learning. If you'd like to give Brilliant a try, just scan the QR code on screen or head to brilliant.org/leave-curious, or just head to the link in the description or comments of this video. If you do that, you'll get 20% off an annual subscription, which is the best deal, so go and make the most of it. If you enjoyed this video, then you'll love this video here. This one's about the giant sequoias, which are thriving here in Britain. We actually have more giant sequoias here than you do over in California. Linked here is the Leave Curious membership, so go and check that out. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Leave Curious.